The prom dress hung in the closet for 29 years. Seafoam green, with delicate beading along the neckline, waiting for a night that never came. In small-town Minnesota, some mysteries become part of the landscape, whispered about at diners and remembered every spring when prom season returns. But in 2021, renovation workers at the old Riverside Theater would stumble upon something that would finally answer the question that had haunted the town since 1992. What happened to Rachel Anderson? May 15, 1992. The air in Minnesota carried that particular sweetness of late spring when lilacs bloomed and graduation loomed just weeks away. Franklin High School buzzed with prom preparations. 17-year-old Rachel Anderson had been planning this night since freshman year. The drama club star had saved every dollar from her part-time job at the local bookstore to buy that perfect dress. She tried on at least 40 dresses, her mother Carla would later recall. When she found that one, her face just lit up. She said it made her feel like she was floating. Before we begin the story, write in the comments which city you're from. We're very interested to know where you're watching our video from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your rating. Rachel wasn't just any high school senior. She commanded the stage in every school production, her talent obvious to anyone who watched her perform. The drama teacher often said she had that rare quality that couldn't be taught. College acceptance letters had started arriving, including one from the prestigious theater program at Northwestern. Her future seemed written in spotlights. 3 days before prom, tension crackled through the drama department's rehearsal space. Derek Mitchell, 18, and built like the football player he was, stood in the doorway watching Rachel practice her lines. They had dated for 2 years, the classic high school romance that everyone assumed would last forever. But Rachel had ended things just a week earlier. She told me she needed to focus on her future, Derek would tell investigators. Said we were going different directions after graduation. Witnesses remembered Derek's hands clenching and unclenching as he watched her that day, his jaw tight with unspoken words. Thomas Brennan represented everything Derek wasn't. 19, already a year into college, he drove back to Franklin every weekend in his beat-up Honda Civic just to see Rachel. They had met at a theater workshop in Minneapolis, bonding over their shared love of Tennessee Williams plays. Thomas came from money, or at least his family once had. His father's business had collapsed in the late 80s, but Thomas maintained the appearance of wealth, always picking up dinner checks he couldn't afford. Rachel made him feel like the person he wanted to be, a mutual friend observed. What Rachel didn't know was that Thomas had been rejected from Northwestern's theater program the previous year, a fact he carefully kept hidden. The third person in Rachel's orbit that week was Jenny Watson, 17, her best friend since elementary school and understudy in every play. Where Rachel shone naturally, Jenny worked twice as hard for half the recognition. Jenny was always there, always supportive, Carla Anderson remembered. She helped Rachel practice lines, fixed her costumes when they tore, even helped her pick out that prom dress. Jenny had bought her own prom ticket the same day as Rachel, planning to go with a group of friends since she didn't have a date. She kept her ticket stub in her locker, a detail that seemed meaningless at the time. May 14th, the day before prom. Rachel's last normal day began at 7:30 in the morning when she stopped by the seamstress to pick up her altered dress. Mrs. Chen, who had hemmed the dress, remembered Rachel's excitement. "She made me promise to come see her in the fall play," Mrs. Chen said. She was so full of life, talking about college, about all her plans. The receipt showed Rachel paid at 8:15, tucking the dress carefully into a garment bag. At school, multiple witnesses placed Rachel in her usual routine. First period English, where she turned in her final paper on the glass menagerie. Second period chemistry, where her lab partner noticed she seemed distracted. "She kept checking her watch," he said. "When I asked if everything was okay, she said she just had a lot to do before tomorrow night." During lunch, security cameras captured her sitting with Jenny at their usual table. The timestamp read 12:23. The two girls appeared to be in deep conversation, Rachel showing Jenny something in a notebook, though the pages weren't visible on camera. After school, Rachel attended drama club from 3:30 to 5. It was their final meeting before prom weekend, and the drama teacher, Mr. Harrison, had brought cake to celebrate the seniors. Rachel gave a little speech, he recalled, his voice catching even years later. She thanked everyone for making her high school years special, said she'd never forget any of us. Jenny stood beside her during the speech, smiling, though one student remembered thinking Jenny's smile seemed forced. At 5:15, Thomas Brennan's Honda pulled into the school parking lot. The security camera caught him waiting by Rachel's car, a conversation that lasted exactly 12 minutes, according to the timestamp. "We talked about meeting up after prom," Thomas would later tell police. "She said her mom was hosting an after-party, but maybe we could slip away for a while." He drove away at 5:27, heading to his job at the video store where he worked Friday nights. Derek Mitchell's whereabouts that afternoon were well documented. Football practice ran until 4:30, followed by weight training until 5:45. His coach confirmed his attendance, noting that Derek seemed particularly aggressive during drills. "I had to pull him aside," Coach Williams said. "Told him to calm down before he hurt someone." Derek showered and left the school at 6:10, telling teammates he was heading home. But a receipt would later surface from a gas station 3 blocks from Rachel's house. Timestamp 10:58 p.m. It showed Derek purchasing a pack of cigarettes and an energy drink. "I couldn't sleep," he explained. "Went for a drive to clear my head. Yeah, I drove past her house. So what? It's a small town. You drive past everyone's house eventually." Rachel arrived home at 6 that evening. Carla Anderson was preparing dinner, lasagna, Rachel's favorite. She was excited but also nervous, Carla remembered. She kept talking about how everything was about to change, how after tomorrow night, high school would really be over. They ate dinner together, just the two of them. Rachel's father had passed away when she was 12, a heart attack that had brought mother and daughter even closer. After dinner, Rachel went to her room to study for her history final. Carla could hear music drifting from under the door, the Broadway soundtracks Rachel loved. At 8:30, Carla knocked to say goodnight. "I work the early shift at the hospital," she explained to investigators. "Had to be up at 4:30. Rachel came out and hugged me, told me she loved me, said she'd see me in the morning to show me the dress one more time before tomorrow night." The last confirmed phone call to the Anderson house came at 10:15. Rachel's friend from drama club called to confirm their prom group's photo schedule. "She sounded completely normal," the friend said, "maybe a little tired. She said she was about to go to bed, wanted to get beauty sleep for the big day." The call lasted 6 minutes. Sometime between 10:15 and midnight, everything changed. The window in Rachel's second-floor bedroom was found open the next morning, muddy footprints on the white-painted windowsill. It had rained briefly around 11 p.m., a light spring shower that lasted 20 minutes, according to weather records. The mud was still damp when Carla discovered her daughter's empty room at 6:30 a.m. "I knocked to wake her up," Carla's voice broke as she recounted that morning. "When she didn't answer, I opened the door. Her bed hadn't been slept in. The window was open, curtains moving in the breeze. And that dress, that beautiful dress, was still hanging right where she'd put it." The police arrived within minutes. Franklin was the kind of town where a missing teenager triggered an immediate all-hands response. Detective Ray Palmer, who would work the case for the next decade before retiring, remembered his first impression of the scene. "It was too clean," he said. "If someone took her by force, there should have been signs of struggle, but everything was perfectly in place except for those footprints." The footprints told a confusing story. They appeared to show someone climbing out, not in. The pattern suggested someone carrying weight, moving carefully. A drama club keychain was found on the floor near the window, the kind sold at school fundraisers. Rachel had one, but so did every other drama club member. "We must have sold 50 of those things," Mr. Harrison confirmed. By noon on May 16th, search parties had formed. Derek Mitchell was among the first to volunteer, arriving at the search headquarters still wearing his Letterman jacket. "We have to find her," he kept repeating. Thomas Brennan drove down from college, abandoning his shift at the video store without calling in. And Jenny Watson became the unofficial coordinator, making lists of places to search, organizing groups, bringing coffee and sandwiches to exhausted searchers. Jenny was incredible those first days, Detective Palmer noted. While everyone else was falling apart, she held it together. She even suggested we check the old theater, said Rachel sometimes went there to practice where it was quiet. The old Riverside Theater, abandoned since a fire in the 70s, was searched thoroughly. Nothing was found. Not then. As the hours turned to days, disturbing details emerged. Rachel's diary, discovered hidden in her bookshelf, revealed fears she hadn't shared with anyone. 3 weeks before her disappearance, she had written, "Sometimes I feel like someone's watching me. It's probably just pre-graduation paranoia, but I swear someone was in my room yesterday while I was at school. Nothing was missing, but things were moved. Mom says I'm imagining things." Another entry, dated May 10th. "Jenny's been acting strange lately. She keeps asking about my college plans, about whether I'll forget everyone when I'm famous. I told her that's ridiculous, but she didn't seem convinced. She looked at my prom dress yesterday and said something weird. She said it would look better on someone who really deserved it." What does that even mean? The investigation initially focused on Derek Mitchell. His jealousy was well known, his temper documented. The gas station receipt placed him in Rachel's neighborhood that night. But something didn't add up. The clerk at the gas station, when pressed, remembered Derek clearly. "He was upset, yeah, but not angry," the clerk said. "More like sad. He bought cigarettes, but then just stood outside for like 10 minutes, not even smoking. Just standing there, looking lost." Thomas Brennan's alibi seemed solid at first. He had clocked in at the video store at 6 and supposedly worked until midnight. But when investigators pulled the store's records, they found something odd. The computer system showed no transactions between 10:30 and 11:45. "It was a slow night," Thomas explained. "Sometimes we'd go an hour without a customer." But a regular customer came forward saying he'd stopped by around 11 to return a movie and found the store locked, lights off. The case began to chill as summer arrived. Prom happened without Rachel, her absence a ghost at the dance. Her dress still hung in her closet, a symbol of everything lost. Carla Anderson couldn't bring herself to move it. Derek Mitchell attempted to take his own life in July, saved only by his mother finding him in time. "Everyone thinks I did it," he said from his hospital bed. Maybe I should have. At least then there'd be answers. Thomas Brennan left for California in August, supposedly to attend film school. In reality, investigators later learned, he was fleeing gambling debts that had reached dangerous levels. He had been borrowing money from questionable sources to maintain his facade of wealth for Rachel. "She never knew," he insisted. "I never wanted her to know how bad things were." And Jenny Watson? She stepped into Rachel's roles in the fall drama productions, finally the lead instead of the understudy. She dedicated every performance to her missing friend, tears streaming down her face during curtain calls. She organized vigils, kept Rachel's case in the local news, became the grieving best friend everyone expected her to be. She even wore a small pin with Rachel's picture to school every day. Years passed. Detective Palmer retired but kept Rachel's file at home, reviewing it regularly. Carla Anderson aged decades in those years, holding on to hope that somehow, somewhere, her daughter was alive. The prom dress remained in the closet, a shrine to a night that never was. Franklin moved on, as small towns do, but never forgot. Every prom season, someone would mention Rachel Anderson, the girl who vanished the night before the biggest night of her young life. The investigation that had consumed Franklin for months eventually became a cold case file, but it never truly died. New detectives would occasionally pull Rachel's folder, hoping fresh eyes might spot something missed. Technology advanced, but without a body or crime scene, there was little to test. The muddy footprints had been photographed, but led nowhere definitive. The town learned to live with its unsolved mystery, though Carla Anderson never stopped waiting for her phone to ring. In 2010, 18 years after Rachel vanished, a development briefly rekindled hope. A woman in Chicago called the Franklin police claiming she had information about Rachel Anderson. Detective Maria Santos, who had inherited the case, drove 4 hours to meet her. The woman, a psychic who had read about the case online, claimed Rachel was speaking to her from beyond. Santos listened politely, took notes, and drove home with nothing but wasted time and fresh disappointment for Carla Anderson. The real breakthrough wouldn't come for another 11 years. In March 2021, the old Riverside Theater finally faced demolition. The building had been an eyesore since the 1970 fire that had closed it, various attempts at renovation falling through over the decades. The current owner, a developer from Minneapolis, planned to build condos on the valuable downtown lot. First, though, the old structure had to come down safely. The renovation crew started with an assessment of the building's integrity. On March 15th, exactly 2 months before the 29th anniversary of Rachel's disappearance, worker Miguel Gonzalez was examining the backstage area when his flashlight beam caught something odd. Behind what appeared to be a solid wall was a narrow gap. Using a crowbar, he pried open what turned out to be a hidden door, painted to match the surrounding walls. "The smell hit me first," Gonzalez would later testify. Not strong after all those years, but distinct. Musty, wrong. I knew I'd found something important before I even went inside. The hidden room was small, maybe 8 by 10 feet, and there, in the corner, investigators found what Franklin had been searching for since 1992. The remains were carefully removed by the state forensics team. But it was what else they found in that room that would finally provide answers. The seafoam green prom dress, carefully hung on a nail in the wall. A cassette tape in a player, batteries long dead. And most remarkably, a drama club makeup kit with the initials JW painted on the side in nail polish. The DNA technology of 2021 far surpassed what was available in 1992. The forensics team was able to extract DNA from multiple sources in the hidden room. Hair follicles caught in the zipper of the prom dress, skin cells on the cassette player buttons, and, crucially, DNA under the fingernails of the victim, suggesting a struggle had indeed taken place, just not in Rachel's bedroom. While the forensics team worked, Detective Santos began re-examining the original case with this new information. The hidden room in the Riverside Theater hadn't been in the original blueprints. Research revealed it had been added during Prohibition, likely used to store illegal alcohol. The fire in 1970 had damaged much of the theater, but left the backstage area largely intact. Most importantly, in 1992, very few people would have known about that room's existence. Jenny Watson, now Jenny Patterson, lived just outside Minneapolis. She had married an accountant in 2001, had 2 children, and worked as a drama teacher at a private school. When Detective Santos called to inform her that Rachel had been found, Jenny's response was immediate and emotional. "Thank God," she sobbed over the phone. "Carla can finally have closure. This is wonderful news. Terrible, but wonderful. When can I come see Carla?" But Santos had questions. The makeup kit found in the room, did Jenny remember having one like that in high school? "We all had them," Jenny replied. "The drama club bought them in bulk. Mine was stolen from my locker, actually, right around the time Rachel disappeared. I reported it to the school." Santos checked. There was indeed a report of a stolen makeup kit, filed by Jenny Watson on May 20th, 1992, 4 days after Rachel's disappearance. It seemed Jenny had thought of everything, even then. The cassette tape, when finally played using restored equipment, contained a recording of Rachel practicing her lines for an upcoming audition. But at the end, after several minutes of silence, there was something else. Voices, muffled but distinguishable with modern audio enhancement. Rachel's voice saying, "Jenny, what are you doing? Why did you bring me here?" And another voice, undoubtedly Jenny's, responding, "I just wanted to talk, away from everyone else, about after graduation." Derek Mitchell, now 48 and working as a contractor in Minneapolis, was cleared definitively. Phone records from 1992, re-examined with new technology, showed he had called his ex-girlfriend in Iowa at 11:30 that night, a call that lasted 40 minutes. He couldn't have been at Rachel's house or the theater during the crucial time window. "I always knew the truth would come out," he said, though the years of suspicion had clearly taken their toll. His suicide attempt in 1992 had been driven by guilt over their breakup, not over her disappearance. Thomas Brennan proved harder to track down. He had changed his name legally in 2000 and was living in Oregon under the name Thomas Blake. When contacted by Detective Santos, his first response was to hire a lawyer. Further investigation revealed why. On the night of Rachel's disappearance, Thomas hadn't been at the video store at all. He had been meeting with a loan shark in Minneapolis, desperately trying to negotiate more time to pay back the $5,000 he owed. The meeting, at a bar called the Wooden Nickel, was verified by multiple witnesses and time-stamped credit card receipts. Thomas had been too ashamed and afraid to admit this in 1992, choosing instead to let suspicion fall on him rather than reveal his gambling problem. "I loved Rachel," Thomas said in his formal statement. "But I was a coward. I knew telling the truth about that night would mean admitting what a fraud I was. She thought I was this sophisticated college guy with money and prospects. In reality, I was failing out and in debt up to my eyeballs." When she disappeared, I ran. Not because I was guilty of hurting her, but because I was guilty of being a lie. The forensics team made another crucial discovery. In the hidden room, they found traces of chloroform on fabric remnants. Chloroform was commonly available in 1992, especially in school chemistry labs and theater departments where it was sometimes used for cleaning purposes. The drama club at Franklin High had a bottle in their supplies, used for removing stubborn adhesive from costumes and props. Access was supposedly restricted, but in reality, any drama club member could have taken it. Detective Santos pulled Jenny Watson's high school records. Jenny had been a straight-A student, except for one notable exception. In her senior year, she had received a C in chemistry after failing to turn in a major project. Her explanation at the time was that she had been too distraught over Rachel's disappearance to focus on schoolwork. But looking closer, Santos found that the missing project had been due on May 14th, the day before Rachel disappeared. The investigation revealed other troubling patterns. 3 separate students from the class of 1992, interviewed independently, remembered Jenny's obsession with Rachel going beyond normal friendship. "Jenny didn't just want to be Rachel's friend," one former classmate said. "She wanted to be Rachel. She'd copy her hairstyles, her way of speaking, even her handwriting. It was creepy, but we just thought it was hero worship." Another classmate remembered a disturbing incident at a cast party in April 1992. Rachel was talking about Northwestern, how excited she was. Jenny got really quiet, then said something like, "Well, not everyone gets to have your perfect life?" Rachel tried to laugh it off, but Jenny just stared at her. The room got really uncomfortable. The technical evidence continued to mount. The old theater's back door, which led to the hidden room area, had a coded lock in 1992. The code was known only to drama club officers and maintenance staff. Jenny Watson had been treasurer of the drama club, one of 5 students with the code. She had also been part of the crew that had explored the theater in fall 1991 for a possible performance space before it was deemed too dangerous. During that exploration, the hidden room had been discovered by Jenny and 2 other students, though it had been dismissed as uninteresting and largely forgotten. Detective Santos found one of those other students, now living in Florida. "Oh yeah, I remember that room," he said. "Super creepy. Jenny was fascinated by it, though. She kept saying it would be the perfect place to rehearse without anyone bothering you. We laughed because who would want to rehearse in that dusty little box?" The footprints on Rachel's windowsill took on new meaning. Forensic analysis showed they were consistent with someone Rachel's size climbing out, not the larger footprints of a male intruder climbing in. The pattern suggested someone being supported or guided, not forcing their way. If Rachel had been drugged with chloroform in her room, she might have been conscious enough to climb out with assistance, but too disoriented to resist or cry out. Jenny's behavior after the disappearance, once seen as helpful and caring, now appeared calculating. She had directed search parties away from the theater initially, saying she had already checked it thoroughly. She had suggested that Rachel might have run away to pursue acting opportunities, planting the idea that Rachel had left voluntarily. She had even found pages from Rachel's diary that suggested Rachel was unhappy and considering leaving, pages that Carla Anderson swore hadn't been there when she first looked through the diary. In April 2021, Detective Santos had enough for a warrant. Jenny Patterson's DNA was collected and compared to the samples from the hidden room. The match was conclusive. DNA on the makeup kit, on the cassette player, and most damningly, skin cells under Rachel's fingernails that indicated a struggle. When Santos arrived at Jenny Patterson's home with an arrest warrant, she found Jenny in her backyard, watching her children play on a swing set. "I've been expecting you," Jenny said quietly. "Ever since I heard about the theater being demolished, I knew this day would come." The interrogation lasted 12 hours. At first, Jenny maintained her innocence, suggesting someone had stolen her makeup kit to frame her. But as Santos laid out piece after piece of evidence, Jenny's composure cracked. The audio tape with her voice, the DNA evidence, the chloroform traces, the testimony about her obsession with Rachel, it all built an overwhelming case. Finally, Jenny spoke. "You don't understand what it was like," she said. "Everyone loved Rachel. Everything came so easy to her. The leads in plays, the boyfriends, the college acceptance. And there I was, working twice as hard for nothing. Always the understudy, always the friend, never the star." According to Jenny's eventual confession, she hadn't planned to kill Rachel. On the night of May 15th, she had gone to Rachel's house with chloroform, intending only to drug her and keep her somewhere until after prom. "I wanted her to miss it," Jenny admitted. "I wanted her to know what it felt like to miss out on something important. I was going to be prom queen if she wasn't there. People would finally see me instead of her." Jenny had climbed the tree outside Rachel's window, a route they had used as children during sleepovers. Rachel had let her in, confused but not alarmed. The chloroform had worked quickly. Jenny had managed to get the semi-conscious Rachel to climb out the window and into Jenny's car, parked a block away. The drama club keychain had fallen from Jenny's pocket during the struggle, a detail she hadn't noticed in the dark. At the theater, things had gone wrong. Rachel had regained consciousness faster than expected. There had been a confrontation in the hidden room where Jenny had prepared blankets and food, intending to keep Rachel there for just a day or two. "She said she was going to have me arrested," Jenny recalled. "Said I was insane. She tried to leave, and I pushed her. She fell and hit her head on the corner of that old radiator. There was blood, and she wasn't moving, and I didn't know what to do." Instead of calling for help, Jenny had made a terrible decision. She left Rachel there and returned home, establishing her alibi by checking in with her parents before midnight. She returned to the theater early the next morning before the search parties formed to check on Rachel. She was gone, Jenny said, her voice flat. Just gone, and I couldn't tell anyone because who would believe I hadn't meant for it to happen? Jenny had then thrown herself into the search efforts, both to appear helpful and to control where people looked. She had planted false diary entries, directed suspicion toward Derek and Thomas, and slowly let the case grow cold. She had lived with the secret for 29 years, building a life on top of it. Marriage, children, a career teaching drama to high schoolers, the very life Rachel might have lived. But the green prom dress had haunted her. I hung it in that room, Jenny confessed. I don't know why. Maybe I thought someday she'd wake up and wear it. Maybe I just wanted to preserve that moment when everything was still possible. She had returned to the theater several times over the years, always alone, always careful. The last time had been in 2010, on what would have been Rachel's 35th birthday. The revelation that Rachel had been in the hidden room all along, just yards from where searchers had looked in 1992, was devastating for the community. The theater had been checked, but not thoroughly enough. The hidden room's entrance, painted to match the walls and partially blocked by old set pieces, had been overlooked. Rachel had been there through every search, every vigil, every anniversary of her disappearance. Carla Anderson's reaction to Jenny's arrest was a mixture of relief and incomprehension. Jenny sat at my kitchen table hundreds of times after Rachel disappeared, she said. She cried with me, held me when I broke down, helped me keep hope alive. How does someone do that? How does someone comfort a mother while knowing exactly where her daughter is? The evidence continued to paint a picture of careful planning and cold execution. Jenny had reported her makeup kit stolen to create a paper trail. She had suggested searching everywhere except the one place that mattered. She had even comforted Derek Mitchell after his suicide attempt, knowing he was innocent but letting him suffer under suspicion. Every action calculated, every tear potentially performed. The trial of Jenny Patterson began in September 2021, drawing national attention to the small Minnesota town that had never forgotten Rachel Anderson. The prosecutor, District Attorney Michael Chen, laid out a case that was both methodical and emotionally devastating. The physical evidence was overwhelming, but it was the psychological portrait of Jenny Watson that truly chilled the courtroom. Dr. Sarah Hoffman, a forensic psychologist, testified about the patterns of obsessive identification disorder she observed in Jenny's behavior. This wasn't simple jealousy, Dr. Hoffman explained. Jenny had constructed her entire identity around her proximity to Rachel. When faced with the reality that Rachel would leave for college and leave her behind, Jenny's sense of self began to fracture. The crime wasn't just about stopping Rachel from going to prom, it was about stopping Rachel from leaving Jenny behind. The prosecution presented evidence that Jenny's obsession had been documented long before that fatal night. A journal found in Jenny's childhood home, retrieved from the attic, showed years of entries comparing herself to Rachel. One entry from 1990 read, "Rachel got the lead again. Everyone says I'm just as good, but they always pick her. Maybe because her dad died and they feel sorry for her. When will it be my turn?" Another from early 1992. "Rachel showed me her Northwestern acceptance letter. She was so happy. I smiled and hugged her, but inside I wanted to scream. She gets to leave and become someone. I'll be stuck here forever, forgotten the moment she drives away." The defense, led by attorney Patricia Williams, tried to argue for manslaughter rather than murder, claiming the death was accidental. They painted Jenny as a troubled teenager who had made a terrible mistake and then panicked. But the prosecution's timeline destroyed this narrative. Jenny had acquired the chloroform days in advance, had scouted the theater, had prepared the hidden room with supplies. This was planned, even if the final outcome wasn't. Thomas Brennan, now Thomas Blake, testified via video link from Oregon. His testimony revealed another layer to the story. Rachel had started to pull away from Jenny in those last weeks, he said. She told me Jenny was becoming possessive, always wanting to know where she was, who she was with. Rachel felt suffocated but didn't want to hurt her oldest friend. She was planning to have a gentle conversation with Jenny after prom, to set some boundaries before college. This revelation added tragic irony to the crime. Rachel had been planning to distance herself from Jenny anyway, but with kindness and care. Jenny's desperate attempt to keep Rachel close had instead destroyed any possibility of maintaining their friendship. Derek Mitchell's testimony was perhaps the most powerful. Now, a father of 2 teenage daughters himself, he spoke about the years of suspicion he had endured. "People looked at me differently after Rachel disappeared," he said. "Even after I was cleared, there were whispers. My suicide attempt was seen as an admission of guilt by many. I lost jobs, relationships, opportunities. Jenny didn't just take Rachel's life that night. She damaged dozens of other lives in the ripple effects of her lies." The discovery of additional evidence in Jenny's home proved particularly damning. Hidden in a safety deposit box were items that shouldn't have existed in Jenny's possession. Rachel's diary pages, the real ones that Jenny had removed and replaced with forgeries. A necklace Rachel had been wearing the night she disappeared. And most disturbingly, photographs of Rachel taken without her knowledge in the weeks before her death, showing her at home, at school, with Thomas, living the life Jenny coveted. Jenny's husband, Robert Patterson, testified that his wife had never mentioned anything unusual about Rachel's disappearance beyond the standard story everyone knew. "She would get sad around the anniversary," he said, clearly struggling to reconcile the woman he thought he knew with the teenager who had committed this crime. "She'd visit Carla Anderson, bring her flowers. I thought it was because she missed her friend. Now I don't know what was real and what was performance." Their children, kept from the trial for their protection, were staying with Robert's parents. The destruction of their family unit added another layer of tragedy to a story already overwhelmed with loss. Jenny had built an entire life on the foundation of this secret, and now that life was crumbling, taking innocent victims with it. The cassette tape found in the hidden room provided the trial's most haunting moment. Enhanced audio revealed not just the voices already mentioned, but sounds of struggle and Rachel's last coherent words. "Jenny, please, we can fix this. Just let me go home. I won't tell anyone, I promise. Please." The courtroom was silent as these words echoed through the space, Rachel's voice reaching across 29 years to tell her story. Carla Anderson testified on the trial's 5th day. At 71, she moved slowly, but spoke with fierce clarity. "I spent 29 years not knowing if my daughter was alive or dead, not knowing if she was suffering somewhere, not knowing if she had run away because of something I did or didn't do. Jenny watched me torture myself with these questions. She sat at my table, ate my food, accepted my gratitude for her support, all while knowing exactly where Rachel was." Carla described the prom dress that had hung in Rachel's closet all these years. "I couldn't move it," she said. "It felt like taking it down would mean accepting she was never coming home. Jenny helped me pick out that dress. She was there when Rachel tried it on, saw how happy it made her. And then she took that happiness away forever." The prosecution presented a final piece of evidence that shocked even seasoned court observers. In 2005, Jenny had written a play for her high school drama students titled The Girl Who Disappeared. It was about a teenage girl who vanishes the night before a big event, told from the perspective of her best friend. The play had won regional awards, been praised for its emotional depth and understanding of loss. In light of the truth, it read like a confession disguised as fiction. One passage from the play was particularly chilling. "People think disappearing is the tragedy, but it's not. The tragedy is all the moments that come after. The birthday parties with an empty chair, the graduations that don't happen, the weddings never planned, the children never born. One night of decision creates a lifetime of absence." Jenny had written those words 13 years after Rachel's death, fully understanding the devastation she had caused, and had turned it into art. The jury members visibly recoiled as the prosecutor read these lines aloud. When Jenny Patterson finally took the stand in her own defense, the courtroom was packed. She appeared smaller than expected, her 46-year-old face showing the strain of months in custody. Her attorney led her through a carefully prepared testimony, emphasizing her youth at the time, her emotional instability, the accidental nature of Rachel's death. But under cross-examination, Jenny's composure cracked. When asked about the years of comforting Carla Anderson, she broke down. "I wanted to tell her so many times," Jenny sobbed, "but how could I? After a year, 2 years, 5 years? It became impossible. The lie became my life." When pressed about why she had taken the prom dress to the theater, Jenny's answer revealed the depth of her delusion. "I thought maybe I could wear it, just once, just to see what it felt like to be her. But when I saw it next to her, I couldn't. I left it there like a monument to everything I destroyed trying to possess." The prosecutor's closing argument was devastating in its simplicity. Jenny Watson didn't just kill Rachel Anderson in a moment of jealous rage. She killed her over and over again, every day for 29 years, by denying her family the truth, by letting innocent people suffer under suspicion, by building her own life on the foundation of Rachel's stolen future. The defense's closing tried to humanize Jenny, pointing to her years of community service, her work as a teacher, her role as a mother. "She made a terrible mistake as a teenager and then didn't know how to undo it," Patricia Williams argued. "The girl who committed this crime no longer exists. Punishing the woman she became serves no purpose." But the jury wasn't swayed. After just 6 hours of deliberation, they returned with a verdict: guilty of murder in the second degree. The courtroom erupted in subdued chaos. Carla Anderson weeping with relief, Jenny Patterson collapsing in her chair, her husband leaving quickly with his head down. At sentencing 2 weeks later, Jenny Patterson received 25 years to life. Given her age and the time passed since the crime, she would likely serve at least 15 years before being eligible for parole. It meant she would miss her children's high school graduations, their weddings, the birth of potential grandchildren, all the milestones Rachel never got to experience. Before sentencing, Jenny read a statement. "I've lived with this guilt for more than half my life," she said. "I know apologies mean nothing now. I stole Rachel's future, and I can never give it back. I stole closure from Carla, peace from Derek, truth from Thomas. I've been in a prison of my own making for 29 years, but I know that's nothing compared to the suffering I've caused. Rachel was my best friend, and in trying to keep her close, I lost her forever and lost myself too." Carla Anderson also gave a victim impact statement. "Rachel would be 46 now," she said. "She might have been a famous actress or a teacher like Jenny became. She might have had children who would call me grandma. She might have been ordinary and happy or extraordinary and complicated. But she would have been alive. Jenny took away not just who Rachel was, but who she might have become. That's a theft that can never be repaid." The aftermath of the trial rippled through Franklin and beyond. The high school created a memorial scholarship in Rachel's name for aspiring drama students. The old Riverside Theater's demolition was completed, and in its place, a small park was built with a plaque remembering Rachel and all victims of violence whose stories remain untold for too long. Derek Mitchell, finally fully exonerated in the public eye, started a support group for people wrongfully suspected of crimes. "Suspicion is its own kind of life sentence," he said. "Even when you're cleared, the whispers follow you. Jenny didn't just frame me for Rachel's disappearance. She framed me for 29 years of my own life." Thomas Blake, formerly Brennan, used his experience to become an advocate for gambling addiction awareness. "My secrets and shame made me a perfect suspect," he reflected. "If I'd been honest about my problems back then, maybe the investigation would have focused on the right person sooner." The drama department at Franklin High School struggled with Jenny's legacy. She had been a beloved teacher before her arrest, inspiring countless students. Several of her former pupils wrote letters to the court expressing their confusion and grief. How could the woman who had taught them to express themselves through art be the same person who had committed such a crime? Dr. Hoffman, the forensic psychologist, published a paper on the case that became influential in understanding crimes of obsessive identification. Jenny Watson represents the extreme case of identity fusion, she wrote. She couldn't distinguish between wanting to be with Rachel and wanting to be Rachel. This psychological boundary dissolution led to a tragedy that destroyed multiple lives. In prison, Jenny Patterson began writing a memoir, not for publication, but as part of her therapy. Excerpts leaked to the media revealed a woman still struggling to understand her younger self. "I look back at that 17-year-old girl and I don't recognize her," she wrote. "But I know she's me. I carry her crime, her choices, her terrible solution to temporary pain." The prom dress, that seafoam green symbol of stolen youth, was returned to Carla Anderson after the trial. She donated it to a traveling exhibition about cold cases and their eventual resolution, wanting Rachel's story to help other families still searching for answers. "Someone might see this and remember something," Carla said. "Some detail that solves another family's mystery." Technology had been crucial in solving Rachel's case, from DNA analysis to audio enhancement. The case became a touchstone for advocates pushing for funding to re-examine cold cases with new scientific methods. Hundreds of cases across the country were reopened, inspired by Rachel's story, finally finding its ending. The hidden room in the Riverside Theater became a detail that haunted the town. How many times had people walked past it? How many opportunities to find Rachel had been missed? It served as a reminder that answers often hide in plain sight, waiting for the right moment, the right technology, or simple chance to reveal themselves. Jenny's children, protected from media attention, were moved to a different school district to live with their paternal grandparents. Their father, Robert Patterson, filed for divorce and struggled to explain to them why their mother wouldn't be coming home for a very long time. The generational trauma of Jenny's crime continued to ripple outward, touching lives that didn't exist when Rachel disappeared. In her cell, Jenny kept a single photo, not of her family, but of her and Rachel at age 10, dressed as matching characters for Halloween. They looked so happy, so innocent, so unaware of how their story would end. Guards reported that she often stared at it for hours, perhaps trying to find the moment when friendship turned to obsession, when love became possession. The case changed how missing persons cases were handled in Minnesota. Rachel's law mandated more thorough searches of abandoned buildings and regular re-examination of cold cases with new technology. It was a small legislative victory from an enormous personal tragedy, but Carla Anderson supported it as a way to give Rachel's death meaning. As the one-year anniversary of the trial approached, Franklin held its annual prom. For the first time in 30 years, it wasn't overshadowed by Rachel's absence. The students, most born long after 1992, danced and celebrated, living the night Rachel never got to experience. But at the entrance, a small photo of Rachel in her yearbook picture was displayed with a simple message: "In memory of all the dances never danced." The case's resolution brought an unexpected visitor to Franklin. A woman from California reached out to Carla Anderson. Her daughter had disappeared in 1995 under similar circumstances, never found. She wanted to know how Carla had survived the not knowing, and now how she was surviving the knowing. They began corresponding, two mothers bound by losses, separated by decades, but united in grief. Jenny Patterson's parole hearing wouldn't come for years, but already the town was divided. Some felt she'd served enough time through living with her guilt. Others, particularly those close to Carla, believed no amount of time could balance the scales. The debate revealed deep questions about justice, redemption, and whether some acts forever define us. Detective Maria Santos, who had solved the case, retired shortly after the trial. In her farewell speech, she said, "Rachel Anderson's case taught me that time doesn't heal all wounds, but it does sometimes reveal all truths." Jenny Watson thought she had committed the perfect crime, but she didn't account for the way secrets eat at us, the way evidence endures, the way technology advances. Most of all, she didn't account for the fact that Rachel deserved justice, and somehow the universe conspired to give it to her. The seafoam green prom dress continued its journey through exhibitions, each time accompanied by Rachel's story. It became more than evidence, it became a symbol of stolen possibilities. Young women seeing it often cried, imagining their own prom dresses, their own special nights, and how quickly such innocent joy could be taken away. In the end, Rachel Anderson's story was about more than murder and justice. It was about the dangerous power of envy, the destruction that comes from wanting someone else's life so badly you're willing to destroy it rather than watch it flourish without you. It was about the patience of truth, waiting 29 years to emerge from behind a painted-over door. Most of all, it was about a 17-year-old girl who just wanted to go to prom, to celebrate with her friends, to step into her future, and was denied all of it by the person she trusted most. The town of Franklin eventually moved forward, as towns do. New scandals replaced old mysteries. New students filled the high school halls. But every spring, when prom season arrived and formal dresses filled store windows, someone would always remember Rachel Anderson and the dress she never got to wear. Her story became part of the town's DNA, a cautionary tale about the jealousy that can hide behind friendship's mask and the terrible price of wanting to be someone else. Carla Anderson lived another 10 years after the trial, finally able to properly grieve her daughter. She was buried next to Rachel, mother and daughter, reunited after 40 years of separation. At the funeral, Jenny Patterson's name was never mentioned. She had taken enough from this family. This moment, this final goodbye, belonged only to those who had truly loved Rachel. The Franklin High School drama department thrived in the years following the trial, perhaps driven by a desire to reclaim their space from the shadow of Jenny's crime. They performed Our Town in Rachel's honor, leaving an empty chair center stage for the girl who should have been their brightest star. The performance raised funds for the scholarship in Rachel's name, ensuring that her love of theater would inspire future generations. As for Jenny Patterson, she served 18 years before being granted parole in 2039. She emerged into a world Rachel never got to see, a world of technologies and changes that had passed while she was locked away. She was prohibited from returning to Franklin, from contacting anyone involved in the case, from teaching or working with minors. She lived quietly in a halfway house in Iowa, a woman in her 60s carrying the weight of a choice she made at 17. The green prom dress was eventually donated to the Smithsonian's collection on American crime and justice. It hangs there still, carefully preserved, a reminder that some stories take decades to end, that justice delayed doesn't always mean justice denied, and that the truth, no matter how deeply buried, has a way of finding light. Rachel Anderson would have been 58 years old at the time of this telling. Who she would have become remains forever unknown, a question mark that haunts not just her family and friends, but everyone who has heard her story. In the end, that might be Jenny Watson's greatest crime. She didn't just take Rachel's life. She took all the lives Rachel might have lived, all the people she might have touched, all the stories she might have told. That's a theft that no amount of prison time can ever repay.